According to the huge amount of mail that we receive from our audience, they encounter exactly the same extremely frustrating, ignorant, and totally unrealistic replies and comments from the followers of Muhammad in defense of their Quran and beliefs. Hence, I would like to recite two very apt examples that are relevant to this chapter. In Bukhari Hadith volume 2.667, narrated by Abis bin Rabi'ah, Umar ibn al-Khattab came near the black stone and kissed it and said, "No doubt, I know that you are a stone, and can neither benefit anyone nor harm anyone. Had I not seen Allah's apostle kissing you, I would not have kissed you." It is very revealing that although Umar knew that the gesture was empty and false, he nonetheless copied Muhammad in kissing the stone. Just like Umar, most Muhammadans follow blindly and unthinkingly their leader in their shameful practice of venerating what was and continues to be a pagan ritual, as well as all the other practices, thoughts, and deeds of Muhammad. Furthermore, to explain away the incompatibilities of the stories as depicted in the Quran vis-à-vis their originals in the Bible, the earlier Muhammadan scholars in general alleged that the people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, had altered, corrupted the meaning and or interpretations of their holy books. Unfortunately, his later followers, because of their enormous frustration in trying to reconcile these irreconcilable differences, started the process of character assassinating the holy books of the Jews and Christians by alleging that their texts were actually perverted, altered and doctored at least 1,000 years before or even after, just to deny Muhammad and his Quran their rightful position as a prophet and scripture of Allah. Besides being a preposterous and disgusting allegation, neither the Quran nor any of its followers can substantiate any of their uncorroborated, hate-mongering, asinine, baseless, desperate, and infantile allegations. Theirs are acts of intellectual, literary, historical, and theological perversions and fraudulence resulting from their desperate need to explain away the unexplainable. Nonetheless, these allegations have become part and parcel of their dogma, justify them to slaughter, dispossess, plunder, subjugate, or force into conversion the people of the book. Like all criminals, the Muhammadan exegetes project upon their victims, the Jews and Christians in this particular case, the very characteristics, deeds, and perversions that they themselves actually possess, exhibit, and do. It is, after all, easier to claim that one's opponent is a fraud without ever having to prove that they are. The word used by Muhammadan writers for this supposed corruption or alteration of the sacred scriptures of the Jews and Christians is tahrif. What is actually astounding and contrary to these allegations is that it is a documented fact that most of the early Muhammadan exegetes understood tahrif to mean altering the meaning, but not the text of some of the biblical verses. It was Ibn Hazm 994 to 1064, born in Cordoba, Spain, in his Al-Fisal fil Al-Bilal wal-Ahwa wal-Nihal, who carefully built a case for the verbal corruption of the biblical text because he could not accept that the Quran could ever possibly be wrong. In psychology, this is called projective identification, whereby the criminal accuses his victim of his own intended criminal action. To explain away the unacceptable, Ibn Hazm alleges that the Bible is not a message from Allah, which contains some erroneous passages and words, but is of the status of an anti-scripture, an accursed book, the product of satanic inspiration. His conclusions mark the departure from the prevailing opinion before his time and was followed by subsequent writers only with careful qualifications. Although the majority of later polemicists rejected Ibn Hazm's conclusions as extreme, by the strength of his argumentation, he influenced all subsequent polemical literature. I gave these two examples as an illustration of the incredible power of belief in denying facts, reality, logic, and intellect. Our listeners must appreciate that if many of the most educated scholars of Muhammadan Islam could subscribe to such embassy logic, how can we blame the mostly unlearned and generally unthinking ordinary men and women followers of Muhammad in believing otherwise? Their only escape from reality is denial, denial, denial. Even when you quote to them chapter and verse of their own scripture, because admitting to any of our revelation is tantamount to religious suicide. That is why, when our audience or ourselves have a discussion with a follower of Muhammad, it has to go through the following sequences. We are first accused that we do not read, write Arabic, and hence cannot possibly know what we are discussing. When we point out that our mother tongue is Arabic, and that we do read and write it, they go to the next line of defense. It is not good enough to read the Quran, because you must study it. We inform them that we have. Have you studied it at the hands of a Muslim scholar who would explain to you the hidden and elaborate meanings of the verses? We do not need anyone else to explain the meaning of the verses of the Quran, since we are reading it in our own mother tongue. Okay, where are your references upon which you are basing your allegations? But we have been quoting to you chapter and verse from the Quran and hadiths. These are the references. You are lying. You are deliberately perverting the noble message of the Quran by taking everything out of context. You must quote from reliable sources. What other more reliable sources are there than the Quran and hadith that you believe in? You are an anti-Muslim, a Christian kafir, or a Zionist imperialist dirty Jew bastard. End of communication. Next. This may sound like a comedy script, but frighteningly, it is a fact that no follower of Muhammad could ever admit to any of our statements and conclusions without apostatizing. As we have pointed out on several occasions, that the male followers of Muhammad never miss a chance from shooting themselves in the mouth is their total inability to use their brain or intellect independently from their elders or leaders. In the script above, we are told that if we do not know the Arabic language, we cannot possibly understand the Quran. We agree with this statement fully. How then can the same followers of Muhammad brag that it is the fastest growing belief on earth, when in reality and in fact over 1 billion of the 1.3 billion followers of Muhammad do not understand Arabic, and especially the Arabic of the Quran? Under what category are they? Kafirs, ignorant Muhammadans, imperialist agents, tools of Zionists? Can they in fact be even considered Muslims? Hence, their first, foremost and only line of defense is obliterated, leaving them nothing more than circular and hence endless illogic to try and defend the indefensible. As we have mentioned before, that a belief is not merely an idea that the mind possesses. It is in fact an idea that totally possesses the mind. Hence, it is almost impossible to get through to people who are too scared to listen, lest they have to discard all their views on Muhammadan Islam. In conclusion, talking to the followers of Muhammad is exactly the same as Umar ibn al-Khattab intoned, like talking to the black stone.